Good morning, my friends. Welcome back to yet another Halo TV show episode, and this one was, weird in many senses. So, before we even break down the episode, I need to just go over the overview, because the whole story setup for this episode, and for the concept of it, baffles me. It truly baffles me. I don't get it, and I don't care if this is some alternate Halo timeline, right? If you're under the Halo name, you've got a certain bar to hit in terms of writing quality and overall story quality and expectations, and this doesn't hit that. So this entire episode is basically a side quest, right? It's a side fetch quest that's meant to act as almost like a filler episode, which I don't think 8-episode long season should ever have filler episodes. I don't think that's long enough. I mean, back in the day when shows used to have like 20 episodes a season, like Lost, for example, filler episodes I kind of got because they had to pad it out. But now that seasons are so much more condensed, I don't think filler is necessary, but that's a different debate, different topic. So what baffled me most about this, and it's not just this, but this is the main thing, right? So as we know, the last episode, the fall of Reach begins. The Covenant invade Reach, and this episode picks up right where the last episode left off, which is pretty good. I like that they did that. About, I don't know, let's be generous and say about 5 hours after the fall of Reach began. And in that time span, they are going on a side quest. The Chief, Halsey, Riz, Soren leave Reach and go to some backwater colony to look for Soren's son, whilst Reach is literally being glassed by the Covenant. I don't understand. So not only have we had the fall of Reach so far without a single frame of Mjolnir armor, we now have the fall of Reach happening, and it's not even on the screen. The main character's Master Chief isn't even there. I am just clearly words fail me. Words fail me. Let's break this episode down then. So, like I said, the episode begins right where the last episode ends off, in some, I think it was like Fleetcom Tower or something, right at the top with Soren, Riz, Halsey holding off against the Covenant, and I actually really liked the opening of this episode. It was really good. It really felt like the survivors were on the back foot, which is very Fall of Reach. I like that. And then towards the end, once they kill all the jackals that are there, which, by the way, the jackals in the show do look really cool. I do like them, especially those little, like, wrist blades, like the Halo Reach Elite Assassination blades. Those things on jackals, actually very good idea. I love that. Once the jackals are dead, Soren tempts fate and says that, oh, is there any more of you? And then all of a sudden, this massive brute comes through the roof with a hammer, and the brute looked, sounded, acted, behaved perfectly. This brute looked sick, and I really hope we see more of them. He does get killed in a bit of a cheese way. Soren's wife magically appears in some transport ship that also happens to have rocket pods and kills it, which I thought was a bit lame. But besides that, the presentation of this brute was really cool. Oh yeah, and also Quan appears. Somehow, bear in mind she's meant to be some, like, teenager. She's holding a chain gun, which looks a bit like George's chain gun, the one from Reach, combined with like a PKM. She's holding it and she's just mag dumping it, or I should say belt dumping it downrange. Okay, suspension of disbelief, I guess. You know what? I'm gonna stop questioning anything Quan related, because none of it makes sense. Suspension of disbelief. Suspension of disbelief. And then right as they get on the transport ship to safety, Riz realizes that they've left Vanak's body there, and so she does, like, unironically, a very Spartan thing. She gets out 2 sidekicks. Seeing a dual wield is very, very, very cool. She's done it already, but seeing her do it again was very cool. And she runs back into the darkness, into the smoke, to go and get Vanak's body against all odds. I love that. Very Spartan thing, and she eventually gets out with Vanak's body, but she's extremely injured. And this section kind of reminded me a little bit of actually what happened to Linda during the Fall of Reach, where she gets injured so badly by the plasma pistol bolt that she's basically, for all intents and purposes, dead, and they have to leave her in cryo until after the events of CE. And this episode kind of takes Riz in that sort of direction. We'll touch more on it later, but by the looks of it, this is Riz's last episode, which I hope isn't the case, because her armor was like my favorite out of all the Silver teams. Her armor was sick, and if we never see that again, I'll be a little bit annoyed. And then as they're leaving Reach, you can see Reach City, I think that's what it's meant to be, getting glassed. And again, the glassing beam looks so good. The whole glassing effect, amazing. Looks so good. The way that the beam moves sounds really weird. It kind of reminds me of the way that the beam moves when you're playing as Prophet of Regret in Halo Wars. I don't know, very weird little thing there, but it looked really cool. The whole glassing looked really cool. We then get another shot of it in space from orbit from the bridge of the Arbiter's ship, and this is where things start to get a little bit weird. So the Covenant sections, very happy to see them back. Obviously, Halo 2, we all love Halo 2, and one of the greatest sections of Halo 2 were all of the Covenant sections where you see the Arbiter and the Elites and the Prophet side of things, and we're getting that again, which is definitely good, but it's just caveated by, I know this is like an old thing to say now, but the absurdity of the whole concept of the character of Marquis. Obviously, her existing character was already just silly, a human captured by the Covenant because she's a blessed one, but not captured and being held against her will. A human that actually joins the Covenant, I think that's silly. But the fact that she's also like very clearly meant to be dead, but she's not dead, just the whole concept of that character is absurd. What I will say though is that in all these Covenant sections, the actual like VFX on the Elite, the way that his mandibles move when he talks is excellent. Like genuinely really good. Props to whoever animated that, because they did a damn good job. One thing I gotta say though is that the interior of the Covenant ship, besides the odd hologram that I think is actually a hologram that was used in Spartan Ops, that sounds very specific. This gold like circular hologram, I swear to God that was in Spartan Ops at some point. Maybe I'm going crazy, but the interior of the ship does not look like a Covenant ship at all. It looks like a human ship on the inside. I genuinely thought that Marquis was on some like captured UNSC frigate or something that the Arbiter had taken, but apparently it's meant to be a Covenant ship. There's like not a single ounce of purple or anything there, but okay, fair enough. We then go to the colony of Illyria, where there's like this whole side quest thing where Soren and his wife are trying to find their son Kessler, who just like, I don't know, they lost him on some transport ship or something when he was leaving Reach. Not Reach. Was it Reach? No, the Rubble. Sorry, my memory's fried. And I'm going to be honest, I kind of zoned out of this. They speak to some innies in I think they were supposed to be innies, in a shack, and it was like very confrontational. I can't get over the absurdity of this. You're in the middle of the Fall of Reach, and I just don't get it. You take Chief away and send him on some stupid fetch quest, like literally some like, this is like, okay, this is the equivalent of in Oblivion, right? Imagine if in Oblivion, whilst Imperial City's falling and Mehrunes Dagon's like stamping around the city, all of a sudden you just go off and do some side quest in like, I don't know, some backwater town somewhere.
Without question.
What, this doesn't make any sense. After a load of very long, drawn out, and frankly, mostly uninteresting dialogue, Quan suggested or convinces Chief to give Vanek a funeral, which isn't the most Spartan thing. But I've got to say, I actually really like this funeral section. Chief gives a speech there that I thought was very on brand for actual regular Timeline Master Chief. It felt like regular Timeline Master Chief talking there, not the bastardized Silver Timeline Master Chief. And I like the whole presentation of this. It was very good. Mystics and shamans aside, which make a surprise return. Apparently every outer colony now has mystics and shamans for some reason. I don't know. Weird. Speaking of shamans...
No, God! No, God, please, no! No! No!
Quan starts having visions of that, like, lead shaman from the colony of Sanctuary in the first episode that got glassed.
No!
She tells her that she's special, and she says that the monsters are close, and it flicks back to that shot on the cave wall from when Quan was painting on it. And I don't know what these monsters are meant to be. Like, I don't know if they're, like, subtly teasing the Flood, or if the monsters are more of a metaphor of the Covenant, and maybe something else, I don't know. It's not presented very clearly, which I'm not too against, actually. Like, I like that being cryptic. But I have no idea if it's meant to be the Flood. It could be. It could just be something else entirely. It could be a metaphor for Quan, I don't know, facing her demons or something. But I think what they're trying to do with all this mystic stuff is make Quan one of those blessed ones from this first season. So if you guys don't remember, in season 1, they kind of like separated humans from reclaimers. So in the regular timeline, every human is a reclaimer because obviously humans were chosen to inherit the mantle, and they were chosen to be the inheritors of all the foreigners left behind, and as such, they're the only species that can interact with and interface with foreign attack. Great, makes perfect sense. Whereas in the show, they didn't go in that direction. They've gone with instead making a very select and conveniently chosen few humans the only ones that can do that, and they're called Blessed Ones. And who would have guessed it? Master Chief, Marquis, and by the looks of it, Quan as well are all Blessed Ones. How convenient. How convenient. I think they're going in that direction because the Blessed One stuff gets brought up again. I was actually really hoping they dropped that in S1 because it was a really stupid idea. Like, the whole point is that humans, not just some humans, humanity are the inheritors of the mantle of responsibility to inherit all the foreigners left behind. The precursors chose that. The librarian set Geishas in people to make sure they'd find the foreign attack and use it. And it seems like this Blessed One is just a very, very contrived, poetic, artistic, licensed version of being a reclaimer in the regular timeline. But anyway, we go back to the Covenant ship, the Arbiter ship, where Marquis and him are talking, and Cortana, oh yeah, she's got Cortana, by the way. Forgot to mention that one earlier. She has Cortana. And I don't know if there's some, like, secret plan to use Cortana to sabotage the Covenant from within, because there's a bit of a tease of Parangoski doing something to her at the start. But Cortana, basically in the scene, projects a vision of Halo to Marquis and the Arbiter, because Marquis is trying to convince the Arbiter that the Prophets know nothing about the Great Journey because she's a Blessed One and she knows more than them, and she's trying to convince him to go AWOL and go to the Halo with her, as opposed to going back to High Charity and telling the Prophets that they failed their mission on Reach to kill the demon and have them be executed. So she manages to convince the Arbiter to do that because Cortana shows them a vision of Halo. And the Arbiter turns the ship around and they start going to Halo. But then later on, there's more stuff to do with Halo as well. They're starting to tease Halo a bit more. Earlier on in the episode, Halsey talks to Chief about the foreigners, not directly, like not by name. She talks indirectly about the foreigners, the ones that created the Halo. They left something in Chief, which is the whole Blessed One thing. And according to Halsey, Chief is the only one that can lead them to Halo because of that. I'm sorry, like, it's a silver timeline, it's a different timeline, but the way that all these plot points were handled in the regular timeline is so much better. Halsey got the coordinates for the Halo from the ship beneath the ice shelf in Reach, and the Pillar of Autumn did a blind jump with those coordinates and ended up at Halo. That's so much cooler than, oh, humanity's biggest super soldier just so happens to know where Halo is because of some ancient thing. Like, what they're doing in the show with the Blessed One is basically a much less interesting, far more contrived version of the Geash that the librarian has laid in humanity in the regular timeline that was meant to help them discover certain tech or find certain locations in the galaxy. That made perfect sense. That made perfect sense. The librarian loved humanity. She truly believed in them as the inheritors of the mantle, but none of that is the case in this. It's just like, oh, all of a sudden this one character is just so happens to be the one that can lead us to Halo. I think it's very, very contrived. It feels like a much more kind of like overt and in-your-face way of doing a Geash. And I think the reason that the Geashas in the regular timeline don't feel contrived is because they aren't overt. It's never talked about. It's just something that's kind of like implicit in the background. When you make something like that a core story component that is very consciously known by most of the main characters and is written to be very like in the viewer's face, I really don't think it works, and this is an example of that. Riz sustains such grievous wounds that she ends up staying behind on Illyria because she's so damaged she has to walk with a walking stick now, so obviously she can't really fight anymore. And by the looks of it, they've actually just written Riz out of the story now. So that's Vanak last episode and Riz now. She leaves the dog tags on the seat for Halsey and then walks off to help build a building or something with some of these outer colonists. So I'm guessing Riz is gone, which, I don't know, like I said earlier, I really hope isn't the case because her armor looks so sick, and if we just never see that again, that will be a huge disappointment. With all the build-up they're giving the Halo, to me it kind of seems like they're writing all of the other Spartans out, so a little bit similar to the games, it ends up being just Master Chief that goes to the Halo, but who knows at this point. The Blessed One stuff is going to end up being what leads him to the Halo. Quan's going to do it, or Mark. You know what? It's going to end up being Quan, I reckon. I think it's going to end up being Quan that finds the Halo. But I will say, the episode actually ended pretty well. So, at the very end of the episode, we jump to Onyx, to Camp Kurihi from Ghost of Onyx, which is where the Spartan 3s were trained with Akasan and Kai. And by the looks of it, Kai is basically going to be filling the role of Kurt in this timeline, as in she's the Spartan 2 that is chosen to go and train the Spartan 3s. By the looks of it, that's why they're taking her story, which makes me wonder if they're going to give her Kurt's death in the same vein as all the other Spartans dying, so Chief is the only one on Alpha Halo. I wouldn't be surprised if they ended up giving... Actually, no, I say that, it's the Halo TV show. I'll be very surprised if they end up giving Kai Kurt's death. But you know what? Even though I don't want Kai to die, I think that would actually be really cool if they gave her Kurt's death. Kurt's death was so good. That was like a true hero's death, like such a Spartan way to go out. And if they did that to her, I wouldn't be against it. I think it would be really cool. But we'll have to wait and see, I guess. Either way, the Spartan 3s get teased. Yeah, it's a little bit of a clone army type thing, but I don't hate it. I think it's going to be pretty cool. I'm actually looking forward to seeing the Spartan 3s all in SPI fighting. That is going to be very, very cool to see. I'm hoping that the next episode goes back to Reach, because the most baffling thing about this episode was that, like I said, Reach is falling, and they just dip and go somewhere else, which I don't understand. I really don't get the logic behind that. I don't care if, like, in this perfectly honest, very silly little universe that they've got for themselves in the Silver timeline, it makes sense. I don't really care. Like, you look at it as like a broad scheme of things. You look at the practicality and the logic behind that. The military stronghold of humanity is falling. And what do? You take your finest soldiers and you dip to some other planet. I don't get it. Right, that's all I can talk about today because I'm very tired and I frankly want to keep this video as short as possible. I'm sure you guys understand. So, thank you all very much for watching. I really appreciate it. Make sure you go and watch my Halo Epitaph video that I uploaded yesterday. Obviously, I would recommend reading the book first. If you're going to read the book, don't watch the video. Read the book or listen to the audiobook with Keith Shirobaka's voice. Whew! Chills even thinking about it. Read/listen to the book first, then go watch the video. So, yeah. Thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. And I will catch you all in the next one.